moving on to a new ship.
We're doing Belle and Beast from Beauty and the Beast. So we're not going to stick with just the Disney, because while that is one of the most famous incarnations, it's not the only. There are many, many older ones. Like, you can even argue that the Greek myth of Eros and Psyche
Is
could be
a lot like Beauty
at least a
and the Beast.
precursor to it. So, in some of the oldest ones, to very, very much summarize it, Beauty, her name is Beauty, not Belle, is the daughter of a wealthy merchant. She has a few brothers and sisters. The exact numbers of each vary with different tellings. They are used to a wealthy lifestyle, but then their father's ships go down and missing, so they lose a lot of their money. Then they lose their house. They have to live in a much smaller place, and they're not rich anymore. Then word comes that one of their father's ships actually made it to land, so he goes to go check it out, and all of his children request a gift. Beauty only wants a rose, while everyone else wants, dresses and jewelry and expensive stuff. So he finds out that while the ship survived, its cargo didn't. So he can't bring back his children all their expensive gifts. But on his way home, he does pass by a castle with a rose garden, so he's like, at least I can bring Beauty her rose. That's the castle of the Beast. He is not very happy about the rose theft. So he makes a deal with the father. Once the father tells him that it was only a gift for my daughter. So he makes a deal. You can go home, either to say goodbye to your children, and then you come right back here, and you get locked away, or you can send your daughter in your place. So he goes home to say goodbye to his children, because he doesn't want to subject his daughter to that, but Beauty volunteers to go, and
he refuses, of course.
He's not crazy about the idea, but his other children convince him, saying something like it was her fault. So Beauty goes to live at the castle. She eventually becomes friends with the Beast, because he's very nice to her. And he treats her very well, and she's alone most of the time, with, sometimes in some incarnations there are servants there who help take care of her. But she spends a long time away from the Beast every day. They usually only meet up, for dinner or something like that, or maybe for a walk in the garden. The exacts, again, vary depending upon the telling, and he asks her, every day to marry him, but she says no, and he's like, okay. She eventually gets permission to go home and visit her family, because she misses them. And she's given this magic ring so that she can be home for a few days and then come right back. And she's allowed to bring a lot of, a few chests full of gifts home with her. So she brings a lot of gold and stuff. Her sisters, who are jealous of the finery she now has access to, convince Beauty to stay a little longer, that it would break their father's heart if she leaves so soon. And their idea is that if she stays and then when she goes back, the Beast will be so pissed off he kills her. Which is actually kind of terrifying. And also, while in some versions, while this is going on, Beauty's been having dreams about this handsome man who keeps telling her that she needs to save him. So she's also thinking that the Beast has someone else trapped.
But she ends up exceeding her time at home.
Well, yeah, because her sisters convince her to stay.
And when she eventually returns, the Beast is actually dying.
He missed her so much. So she says that she loves him and that she will marry him. And he becomes a handsome prince, because apparently he was cursed. And that person, that young man she's been dreaming about, is the Beast. So, they get married and happily ever after, as most of these stories go. So, and I don't think we need to go over the Disney versions, because if you haven't seen that by now, I find that very strange.
So I mean, obviously there were changes because fairy tales are always adapted.
Yep, so in both Disney versions, the animated and live action, it's basically the same story. Belle's father gets trapped by the beast. Belle takes his place. Their relationship starts out very rocky. It gets better. In this case, it gets better when Beast saves her life after she runs away because he scares the ever-loving shit out of her.
And then she gets attacked by a pack of wolves and he saves her.
And it does get better, and then he starts like outwardly being nicer to her.
He gives her a library.
Yes, I'm jealous of that. And they just grow closer. She does eventually leave to save her father, but she comes back to save the beast. Her love, as with the older fairy tale versions, breaks the spell. He becomes a handsome prince. They get married and live happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing we would like to address before we get into complete fan reaction is a lot of people think that Belle has Stockholm Syndrome. So we would like to address that.
Syndrome. And this is from psychologini.com. So, according to this, most Stockholm Syndrome sufferers end up defending or supporting their captors, and they often end up sympathizing with them, and it says that they're usually completely converted to the kidnapper's cause and agree completely with what just occurred.
So now Fairy over here is going to read the symptoms and signs, and then together we are going to say whether based on that, whether Belle meets them or not.
Mm-hmm. Right. Sometimes they blame themselves for creating violence in their abusers and believe that they need discipline from them and rules to control themselves better.
Yeah, Belle doesn't really need any of that.
Mm-hmm. Stockholm Syndrome can be observed in many relationships where one figure is dominant or in charge, and which usually relates to cult followers or prisoners of war, but that doesn't really apply to this case.
The beast is dominant to an extent because it's his house. She's his prisoner, but she's never really treated like a prisoner. She can't leave the ground, but she's given a lot of leg room.
She is.
And she willfully disobeys rules all the time, so.
Now, Stockholm Syndrome has quite a few causes. So, one is being in an abusive relationship where one person is solely in charge and his or her word is law. So again, it is his house, but she's given leg room.
And she doesn't follow all the rules. She disobeys them deliberately on numerous occasions.
The threat or idea of violence or death where the hostage's life and death lies in the kidnapper's hands, and there is an implied impression that the kidnapper will do him or her harm.
Well, he's never threatened to kill Belle. He never even threatens to hit her or anything. I mean, yeah, he's a big scary monster for most of the movie,
but not, there's no physical threat.
No. Like, the most he threatens to do is lock her away, and while unpleasant, that's not a threat of violence.
Yes. And there's often small and unperceivable acts of kindness or goodwill that endear the kidnapper to the hostage.
Well, he does give her the library and stuff, but that's after they've gotten on better terms.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the cause of why she starts to like him.
Mm-hmm. And usually the kidnapper will isolate the hostage, and they will discuss or enforce their own ideals and beliefs that they are right and everyone else is wrong.
Okay, yeah, none of that happens. It's not, if we're sticking with just the Disney movies, she's surrounded by the castle servants, and she doesn't believe everything the Beast says to her, and he doesn't enforce his outlook.
And with no way out and no chance of survival, there is no other choice other than to believe and trust the captor. That doesn't happen.
She's like, even when they become friends, she's always, well, I don't want to say wary, but she's well aware of her position. And that's not all of it, but that's a good summarization. So she doesn't really meet the qualities.
No.
She never really loses who she is. She defies him when she thinks he's wrong. The list goes on. So that's basically it. So next section, fanon, what the fans usually think. So I think they're a well-received Disney couple.
I think they are, generally. I mean, so like, definitely to older ones. To children, I guess it's a little, yeah, at first, but in general,
I
they're
don't know.
well received by
I liked
friends.
it when I was a kid. I had no issues. So yeah, widely by fans. There's a lot of fan works and fan art, and there is that issue with Stockholm Syndrome that some people take with it. And, the Beast looks like a giant animal for most of his screen time. But in general, it's just a well-received Disney couple.
Yes.
Not really much I can say.
I mean, the Stockholm Syndrome is the only negative thing I've ever really heard about it.
Yeah, same here. Okay, so then what we think. Pretty much the same as the rest of the fans. I like it. I have no problem with it.
I like how they were also one of the, I don't want to say the first because I'm sure there were others, but a lot of the older Disney couples, it was the love at first sight thing, and that didn't happen with them.
No, it was something that was worked toward.
Mm-hmm.
Time and effort was put into it. They spent a lot of time with each other, and their relationship grew and developed, which is, at least from a storytelling point, an improvement.
It's not like that, do I love you because you're beautiful, or are you beautiful because I love you thing that you get from older Disney couples.
Yeah. So then there's the, does this couple work? Yeah.
Yes.
Their interests, once Beast gets over himself, complement each other.
I mean, in the Disney versions, they both end up sharing an interest in books and reading.
And it's emphasized in the live action version, their feelings of isolation. So,
yeah, and they both feel out of place a lot of times. They share
Yeah.
that in the live action.
so yeah. So not really much to say on that. Although I have seen a lot of things where people compare Beast and Gaston on how similar they are in the beginning, but then how it deviates, and Gaston pretty much stays the same, while Beast grows as a person and grows to appreciate Belle as a person. Because when they start out, they both see her as more of an object, something pretty to look at, and with Beast's case, something to break the spell. With Gaston, it's more, she's beautiful, so she should be mine.
Mm-hmm.
But while Gaston kind of just stays on that, she'd be his wife, again, something pretty to look at, something to give him sons.
Beast grows
Didn't
to
really appreciate who she was as a person, and then Beast, well, he did kind of, like I said, he starts out that way. She's more of a means to breaking his curse, which, admittedly, you'd want that to be broken.
But he grows to appreciate who she actually is as a person.
And he lets her go, which is also another big issue with the Stockholm Syndrome thing. He lets her go she leaves.
Mhm. She
And-
doesn't want to stay.
No, and then from his angle, when she leaves, he's sad about it, and he knows it's dooming him and his servants, but he's like, I want her to be happy.
Mhm.
So, again, I like it partly because of that.
I mean, in the end, it all works out. Spell's broken. She loves him. He's Prince Adam again.
Yeah. So, I guess that's it for this one.
Yep. So, 3 down, 1 to go.
See you in our last shipping video, hopefully soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.